Yeah, we did that one. That's fine. Now, you know the
all right. Yeah, just try opening the link in like Chrome or something. It's your browser. That's what it is. It's trying to open.
It says failed to start video camera. Please select another.
Yeah, just go here. You see where that arrow is? Yeah. Logic today. Just click video so you know it's.
Janet, just so you know, you're not muted. We can hear you.
Oh, okay.
Just so you know.
Thank you everyone for being patient. We're just waiting for a few more board members to log on. Unless I'm missing, I don't, Lisa or Linda. No, there's Lisa.
I'm here. This is Linda.
Okay, I see you. You're under Takesha. Can you change your name? Do you know how to do that?
Yeah, give me 1 second.
Thanks. And Phoebe, are you on yet?
Yeah, is my name out on there?
All right, I see you now. You're on as Thomas. I see you though.
I see, okay, my name is there?
Yeah, well, no, you're on as Thomas, but I can physically
Oh,
see your
weird.
video.
Okay, hold on.
If you can change your name.
Lord have mercy. It's crazy. Why does it always do that?
You can beat me for today.
No, I don't want to be you for today.
All right, so I'd like to call to order the regular board meeting of the Board of Directors of the School District for the City of Allentown for today, June 25th, 2020. There was an executive session held prior to this regular board meeting at 6 p.m. to discuss personnel and confidential matters. We will now have the roll call. Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
I'm sorry, thank you. Mrs. Brace,
Here.
Mrs. Conover,
Here.
Mrs. Wilt,
Here.
Mrs. Johnson Watts,
Here.
Miss Matheson,
Here.
Miss Vega,
Here.
Mr. Miller,
Here.
Mr. Theo,
Here.
Miss Harris.
Here.
9 board members are present.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
One nation.
nation, under God, visible,
indivisible,
liberty, and
and
justice for all.
justice for all.
And now for a moment of silence. Thank you. For this month, I would just like to congratulate all of our students for finishing off the year, as well as our teachers, paras, custodial staff, food service staff, and our secretaries for ending the year in what has become the craziness of school right now. And also a congratulations to all of our seniors. The virtual ceremonies will be released starting this weekend. And so I hope you enjoy the virtual ceremony, and maybe potentially we can have those August ceremonies in person. Mr. Parker, do you have any remarks?
Yes, thank you. Just to reiterate your congratulations to our staff and students as we close out another school year that is unlike any school year that we've seen. Kudos to all of you who persevered through a pandemic and an opportunity for us to really kind of see some of the issues in our society through the lens of the pandemic and what that means, but also those who have been actively engaged and a part of movement for social justice in our country. A couple of times now we've had the conversation around what this really means and what the impact is for people, not just people who are Black or brown, but for people in this country understanding the impact of social justice on communities. So I'm excited to see the voices of our nation ring loud to continue to drive out change for this district, for this city, and for our country. I'd also like to say for the class of 2020, again, a graduation and a commencement unlike any that we've ever seen before. We will be celebrating you this weekend with our virtual graduations, but absolutely are looking forward to August to be able to celebrate this class in real fashion, in some level of an in-person ceremony. So those are absolutely exciting for us. We're continuing to work on our plan for back to school. We'll have conversation on that upcoming tomorrow. We have a meeting with a number of task force individuals to help support our planning and thinking for back to school, knowing that in the early part of July, we'll be communicating out our plan for returning to school in the fall. And I know our families are anxiously awaiting that communication. And I'd like to end on a somewhat somber note. I do apologize going from celebratory to somber. I was informed this week that we had a student at Deerop High School by the name of Timothy Hunger, who passed away. So our heart and our soul goes out to Timothy and his family and the entire Husky family on today. It's never an easy thing to have a child who is sick pass. So our heart and our soul goes out to that entire school community and to his family specifically. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Parker. Now is the time, if anybody would like to comment on agenda items, there will be time at the end of the meeting to comment on non-agenda items. So anyone in the public, if you would like to comment on agenda items, now is the time to start raising your hand. I do see one person or a few are starting to raise their hands. So if we could please bring Karen into the meeting. You just need to state your name and address for the record, and then you have 3 minutes. You have to unmute yourself, Karen. Or can someone unmute Karen so she can speak? Karen Sodal.
For herself, I'm asking her to unmute, but she's not doing it.
Okay. Karen, if you can hear this, you have to unmute so that you can speak. All right, can we go to Ashley Strange instead?
Hello.
Please state your name and address for the record.
Ashley Strange, 815 South Front Street, Allentown, PA. I believe looking at the board that this refers to the safety task force. I'm not sure if I have to exactly align with something that's on the board. As many of you are aware, a deer of students gathered on Tuesday to talk about the presence of police in their schools. We know that in Whitehall, there was an incident where a number of police officers arrested 4 youth at a basketball game, very roughly, and sent them to juvenile detention, all because one of them mouthed off to an administrator. And the students in Allentown School District reported very similar things. So nationwide, the call to remove police from schools and to end the school to prison pipeline has been growing. The National Teachers Union is also calling for this. And so before September, I would like to ask to have the school board cancel its contract with the Allentown Police Department and remove those cops from the schools. Can I ask how much of the budget actually goes toward the police department?
So public comment, it's time for you to comment. If you have questions, you can submit them through the Let's Talk app, and someone from the school district would respond to your question.
All right, thanks. I will continue then. So one of the biggest things is that a lot of the youth feel like they're living in a policed state. Some of them have very good interactions with the police department, but we know that at least once a week in the United States, at least one child is brutalized by a police officer in this country. The way that we can get past this is by taking the money that we do give to the Allentown Police Department and reinvesting that back into the community, back into making sure that students have healthy sex ed courses, making sure that they have, access to get on buses, making sure that they have someplace in the school to feel safe where there's not somebody with a pair of handcuffs and a gun and a taser that can get at them. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Donna Reitenauer. Donna, if you can just state your name and address for the record, and then you can begin.
Yes, my name is Donna Reitenauer, and I live at 1139 South 10th Street, Allentown. And I'm speaking to you once again regarding the naming of the new school. This new elementary school needs to be named as soon as possible. And I had a lot of information on my last speech, which hopefully Janet had forwarded to the board members. So thank you, Janet, for doing that. But not having a name negatively affects the committees moving forward. We're already at the end of June, and it affects things such as working with the community stakeholders to help get resources and support for our new school. The hiring process for the new school has been difficult for the applicants because they're having trouble finding the vacancies at the new school because it's not been named. There's things that need to be printed, such as staff handbooks. We need to do school improvement planning, stakeholder meetings. There's a lot of things that need to be printed. A lot of other things that are negatively impacted by not having a school name. Many hours went into choosing the school name. Also, the project manager and Butts Construction had to put a lot of things on hold that they would have been able to do and would have been able to be taken care of if the school had a name. So right now it's just known as the new school. I've heard of the horse with no name, but I'm a little embarrassed if someone starts calling it the school with no name, because that's what it is right now. So I'm hoping that someone can make a motion specifically calling on a few of you. I know Nick Miller and Sarah Jane, Sarah Jane was also on the school naming committee, to bring that forward tonight during old news, if that's possible, to put it back on the table. If not, can it please be put on the agenda for the next board meeting? Because it's something that needs to be done ASAP. Also, I also spoke with someone at the Lehigh Valley League of Women Voters, and also the community director in our area for the Girl Scouts. And although they weren't unable to speak at the meeting right now, they reiterated and wanted me to tell you the importance of naming the school after a woman, since we don't have any in the Allentown School District. The majority of our teachers at our new building, which will be named, and also in the Allentown School District, are women. So it's just very, very important that this gets taken care of. So I appreciate you listening to me, and I hope that during old news, if it's possible, that it will be brought up. And if not at the next board meeting, which I think might be Monday, that is put on the agenda, but we need to have a name right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Donna. Next is Robert Smith. State your, or unmute yourself and then state your name and address. You're still muted. There you go.
Okay. I'd like to, Robert E. Smith Jr., 1060 East Gordon Street on the east side of Allentown. You follow protocol under the naming of the building. Everything was recommended by the superintendent to the board. There should be no further delay. It was a wonderful, wonderful thing that you named it after a woman. We have no lady names in the district, and this will be a first. So please take that out of committee and vote on that tonight. Secondly, I see that there's a 4% tax increase. Wow, something new on the school board. 4% tax increase. I urge all of you to lower that tonight. I know it's not going to go to zero, but I urge you to lower that 4%. We're in a worldwide pandemic. People have lost their jobs. I've got 2 senior citizens on East Gordon Street that are just making it. Working families cannot take another enormous tax increase. Everyone are on tight budgets. We don't know how longer. We may get a second wave of this pandemic. We don't know how longer this is going to last, and we cannot afford tax increases. Bethlehem, Parkland, 0 tax increases. Allentown City is not going to have a tax increase. The county has promised now not to have a tax increase. The city school district, we cannot afford a tax increase. If you cannot get it to 0, I plead with you to at least go 2% tonight. Please. Thank you very much.
Next on the list is Susie Beller.
Thank you. Hello?
Yep, Susie, if you can state your name and address for the record, and then you may begin.
Absolutely. Hi, I'm Susie Beller. I'm at 4534 Main Street, Whitehall. I've been working in the cafeteria department for over 20 years, and I'm really concerned. The negotiation committee has given the district, since February, a tentative agreement has been on the table. I can't understand what the holdup is. This needs to be addressed. Since February, we're called essential. We're told we're appreciated, but where's the proof? We need this contract brought to closure. The tabled tentative agreement is solid. It makes sense. It works for everybody. What's the holdup? During the pandemic, our department showed up, pitched in, worked, did everything they could do. Not a complaint, good faith. The community was enormously supporting us. But where's our district? Why? Where's the support from them? This really, really needs attention. The contract needs to be brought to closure, or let's negotiate. I'm the recording secretary. I'm a delegate for PA Joint Board, SEIU. I'm on the negotiating committee. I'm involved, even on my own time, volunteered hours I donate with webinars and troubleshooting meetings, speaking with the district. But where's our contract? This really needs the attention of the school board. Please give us attention on this. Please show us we are appreciated. Show us that this is priority. Thank you. And thank you everybody for listening to my spiel. Have a great night.
Thank you. Okay, may I have a motion for the approval of the minutes?
So
I'll make
moved.
the motion, Sarah. Oh, go ahead, Audrey. I'll second.
All right, motion
Okay.
by Ms. Matheson, seconded by Ms. Wilt. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing and hearing none, please call the roll.
Mrs. Wilt. Mrs. Wilt?
Sorry, I was unmuting here.
No, yes or no?
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson Watts? Mrs. Johnson?
Yes.
Ms. Matheson?
Yes.
Ms. Vega?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Theo?
Yes.
Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Mrs. Conover?
Yes.
Mrs. Brace?
Yes.
9-0 passes.
Now it's time for information updates. The Allentown Human Relations Commission, Ms. Vega, is there a report?
Yes. First, I want to say thank you to everybody that spoke from the public. You were heard. And as far as the human relations is concerned, we have exciting news. We have been doing a lot of work, all due to the efforts of our very own Janet Murillo, our chair. For the first time in history, HRC has adopted a resolution. We've adopted the resolution on the 8 Can't Wait in the last meeting on June 10th. And it had been requested that the City Council acknowledge our resolution as concrete evidence that the HRC committee is listening to our community loud and clear. Ms. Murillo put endless hours of work behind this to make sure that as a committee, we were extremely successful, and that we were. On this past Monday, the HRC chair, Ms. Murillo, 2 other commissioners and myself, co-chair with the chief, highlighted some of the APD policies and guidelines and procedures. We were glad to know that Allentown has the principles and are looking to always improve on them. Lastly, HRC will hold another public meeting next week on Thursday, which is July 2nd at 6 p.m. As an HRC commissioner, we invite board members, administration, or those in our community to join us, as they are also live. That's all.
Okay, thank you. The Allentown Public Library, Ms. Harris.
There isn't a report at this time.
Okay. The Allentown Recreation Commission, Ms. Harris or Ms. Wilt.
There isn't a report at this time.
Okay. The Allentown School District Foundation, Ms. Wilt or Mr. Theo.
There is no report at this time.
Okay. Carbon Lehigh Intermediate Unit, Ms. Conover.
There's no report at this time.
Okay. LCTI, Ms. Conover, Ms. Matheson, or Ms. Johnson Watts.
We met on yesterday evening, and our next meeting will not be until August, the end of August. We discussed reopening for adult education. A lot of work went into that process. That information is available on the website. Many things for everyone to consider as they return to adult education being reopened. We also approved the renewal of Dr. Rushton's contract as executive director, and there were additional awards announced, which I will forward to Mr. Parker so that those can then be relayed, if they're not already relayed, to the parents of our children.
Okay, anything else from any other members? All right, then last is the safety task force, Ms. Conover and Ms. Harris.
We had a meeting the other day and we discussed the SRO MOU. We are going to be looking at that extensively and presenting it and very soon.
Okay, thank you very much. Next is the Board of Directors report. I'm going to pull item C off of that to vote on it separately. So do I have a motion for the approval of letters A and B on the Board of Directors report?
So moved.
Mr. Thiel, is there a second?
Linda.
Second.
Ms. Vega, any discussion on the motion? Seeing and hearing none, please call the roll. Oh.
Yes, there is discussion on the motion.
Okay.
I just want to be clear that we are aware of how things might differentiate based on discussion in executive session on point A.
Okay. Is there any other discussion? Okay, please call the roll.
Mrs. Conover,
No.
Miss Matheson, Miss Matheson,
Sorry, didn't unmute. Yes.
Miss Vega, Miss Vega,
No.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Thiel,
Yes.
Miss Harris,
No.
Mrs. Johnson Watts,
No.
Mrs. Brace,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilt,
Yes.
5-4 passes.
Okay, may I have a motion for item C, the approval for the renewal of the Roberto Clemente Charter School?
I didn't hear what you said, Sarah. Can you say that again?
Sure, may I have a motion for the approval of the renewal of the Roberto Clemente Charter School? For the resolution for it.
Linda.
All right, Ms. Vega, is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Wilt, any discussion on the motion? Okay, seeing and hearing none, may you please call the roll?
Miss Matheson,
Yes.
Miss Vega,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Thiel,
Yes.
Mrs. Brace,
No.
Mrs. Conover,
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson Watts,
Yes.
Miss Wilt,
Yes.
Miss Harris,
Yes.
8-1 passes.
Okay, moving on to the Secretary and Treasurer's report. Are we okay voting on these together? Seeing no comments on that, we'll vote on them together. So may I have a motion for the approval of the Secretary and Treasurer report?
I'll make the motion.
Mr. Thiel, seconded by Mr. Miller. Any discussion on the motion? Please call the roll.
Ms. Vega,
No.
Ms. Matheson,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Thiel,
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson Watts,
No.
Ms. Harris,
No.
Mrs. Brace,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilt,
Yes.
Mrs. Conover.
No.
5-4 passes.
Okay. Next is the superintendent's report. Are we okay voting on everything together?
I have a question though. Should I ask now or wait?
Is it, well, once the motion is, you can, do you need something pulled separately?
No. Go ahead.
Okay. All right, is there a motion for the approval of the superintendent's report?
So moved.
Ms. Wilt, seconded by Ms. Johnson Watts. Ms. Vega, discussion?
Yes. So for recommendations part 2, I just had a question. So under William Allen High School, we have 36 names. Does that mean that we had 36 high school graduates?
Those are additional to what was approved last month.
Okay, that's what I was a bit confused. That was my question.
Okay. Any other discussion?
No.
Seeing and hearing none, please call the roll.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Thiel,
Yes.
Mrs. Conover,
Yes.
Ms. Harris,
Yes.
Mrs. Brace,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilt,
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson Watts,
Yes.
Ms. Matheson,
Yes.
Ms. Vega.
Yes.
9-0 passes.
Okay, may I have a motion for the approval of the personnel report?
So moved.
Mr. Thiel, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Mr. Miller, any discussion on the personnel report?
Yes, I thought that this was going to be pulled.
No, not the whole report is being pulled.
Okay.
Just 2 items were pulled off of it.
Okay.
I have a question.
Yes.
So under the resignation, under A, for Executive Director of Elementary Education, once that gentleman resigns, will we be looking immediately to fill it, or?
Mr. Parker, if you'd like to answer that.
Yes, that is a position that we will look to fill.
Thank you.
Question.
Yes.
Are we going to specify what we're pulling, or are we just going to say there's something we're going to pull? We're just going to keep going.
Legally, it's personnel, so we can't publicly discuss personnel. So this is the report that's in front of us.
Okay, not a problem. I just had to ask you. Thank you.
Yep. Other discussion or questions?
I would like to make a comment if I could.
Yes.
Mr. President. I just would like to thank Scott Cole. He's been an asset for the district, and wish him the best on his future endeavors. So thank you, Scott.
Thank you very much, Nick.
And I'd like to say it now. I wasn't sure if we were going to do it after the vote. Scott, first and foremost, you didn't know who I was. And I walked into the school building that you were overseeing at the time, and you welcomed me. That spoke volumes about your character. You didn't know who I was, and I wasn't a school board director at the time. I was someone from the community wanting to know more about our schools, and you welcomed me without any understanding of who I was and what I was in the process of doing. And you said, "How may I help you?" And you were delightful. That small, simple interaction has guided my conversations with you throughout the entire time you have worked here. You have been amazing. I am so sorry to see you on this list. I was so hoping that something miraculous could happen to change your decision. But thank you. Thank you for all you've done, and thank you for the way you have welcomed so many other people from the community without hesitancy. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Johnson-Watts.
May I?
Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Cole, I just want to thank you. This is, you know, what I think about you is genuine. You have gone above and beyond. I've seen it. You didn't have to say what you've done. I saw what you were doing. And wherever you go, I know that you're going to be an asset. I wish you nothing but the best. And just believe all that you've done, you will be rewarded. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Conover. That means a lot. Thank you.
I just want to echo, I gave Scott my thoughts via email, but Lisa, you pretty much summed up what I said, and just want to reiterate to you, Scott, as a parent prior, when you were doing family engagement, your commitment to the district was evident, and the work that you and so many others in the administration did to move mountains since March 13th. Just thank you all, and especially you tonight for doing that.
Thank you very much.
Any other discussion? Not, please call the roll, Ms. Morello.
Thank you. Mr. Seal,
Yes.
Mrs. Conover,
Yes.
Ms. Harris,
Yes.
Mrs. Brace,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilt,
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson-Watts,
Yes.
Ms. Matheson,
Yes.
Ms. Vega,
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
9-0 passes.
Okay, next up is finance. Does anybody need anything pulled from finance to be voted on separately? There's a lot of things. All right. Seeing and hearing nothing, do I have a motion to accept the finance report?
So moved.
Ms. Johnson-Watts, is there a second?
I'll second.
Matheson, any discussion on the motion? Seeing and hearing none, please call the roll.
Ms. Harris,
Yes.
Mrs. Conover,
No.
Mrs. Brace,
Yes.
Ms. Vega,
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson-Watts,
Yes.
Ms. Matheson,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilt,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Theo.
Yes.
8-1 passes.
Okay. Next is the building report. Does anybody need anything from the building?
I would like to pull letter A.
Okay. Vote on letter A separate, so let's do that first. May I have a motion for the approval of the new elementary school redistricting? I'll make the motion for the new elementary school redistricting. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Mr. Thiel, any discussion on the motion?
Yes, this is Cheryl. I have a discussion on the motion. I'm not sure why we included McKinley and Cleveland building use is TBD. I don't think that that's relevant to the actual redistricting, which really pertains more to students coming from where going to where, as opposed to what a building is going to be used for.
I believe that's in there for purposes of what PDE needs. Is that correct, Mr. Parker? Or Ms. Ramos?
I can answer that. Yeah, that's,
Okay.
you have to, when you reconfigure schools, you have to respond to certain issues. And one of the things you have to do is put in what the use of the old schools will be. So it's really a function of the form that's required by PDE.
And do we have a deadline for determining what the use of that building is, or those buildings are?
The reconfiguration report has to be in by July 3rd and 30th or 31st, the end of July.
But we're okay to submit it with to be determined.
Well, I'm pretty sure we are. There's a specific person who can answer that question, and I've got calls and emails into her. It's sometimes difficult to get a call back, but I'll confirm that. But I'm pretty sure that's the case. I did speak to her one time before, and I'd suggest we go ahead. If there's any problem, we can adjust it. We've got to fill in that slot, or the reconfiguration recording won't take. It'll be kicked back.
Are there any other questions or discussion on the item A? Seeing and hearing none, please call the roll.
Mrs. Connell.
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson Watts.
Yes.
Mrs. Grace.
Yes.
Mrs. Wilt.
Yes.
Miss Harris.
Yes.
Miss Matheson.
Yes.
Miss Vega.
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Theo.
Yes.
9-0 passes.
Okay. May I have a motion for items B and C?
So
on the
moved.
report? Mr. Thiel, is there a second?
Linda.
Vega, any discussion on the motion? Seeing and hearing none, please call the roll.
Mrs. Wilt.
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson Watts.
Yes.
Miss Matheson.
Yes.
Miss Vega.
Yes.
Mr. Miller.
Yes.
Mr. Theo.
Yes.
Miss Harris.
Yes.
Mrs. Conover.
Yes.
Mrs. Brace.
Yes.
9-0 passes.
Okay. Now's the time if the public would like to comment on non-agenda items. Now's the time to raise your hand for the comment. Donna put hers down. Okay. Lori Herzog, if you can be brought in and then state your name and address for the record.
Hello, Lori Herzog. I live at 1223 West Livingston Street, Allentown. I worked for the district for 20 years in food service. And I'm the president of our local union, the PAJB SEIU. I also on the negotiation committee My coworkers and I are here to say we worked hard on our agreement. However, we have been patiently waiting since February to hear something back from the district. We haven't heard anything. But I have personally worked with supervisors and union reps virtual to work on issues and solving problems. I feel it's time to move forward. We're essential and we work feeding our students. It's time for the district to show us by finalizing our contract. Thank you.
You. Next is Lisa Greitzer. You can bring her in and state your name and address for the record, and then you may begin.
Good evening. My name is Lisa Greitzer. I live at 1116 North 21st Street here in Allentown, and I'm an ESOL facilitator in the school district. This evening, I'd like to share some quotes that may provide guidance and inspiration as you make difficult budgetary decisions. A quote from civil rights activist Marian Wright Edelman: "If we don't stand up for children, then we don't stand for much." The ASD ESOL staff stands up for their students every day, especially during these unprecedented times. Not only do teachers help students overcome English challenges, but also help them ease into a new culture. This year, students across ASD struggled with the new normal, but this was even more exacerbated for our immigrant English learners. It's been an ongoing rapid-fire change for many of them. Starting with adversity in their home country, migration to the United States, to a new neighborhood, a new school, a new language, in addition to experiencing the health and economic crisis here once they arrived. The ESOL staff empathize and support students with this arduous transition through restorative practices, team building activities, positive behavior initiatives, the Newcomer Academy grocery distribution program, our socially distanced senior recognition events. In addition, the Newcomer Academy staff did more than 70 positive porch visits during the pandemic to check in with students to address their unique needs. A quote from Cesar Chavez: "Language is a reflection of our character and growth. In ASD, we want our students to be able to use language to demonstrate knowledge and skills, to advocate, to achieve goals, and to elevate through life. When planning for next year, it is necessary to include staff and programs that provide optimal English learning experiences like that at the Newcomer Academies. There, children acquire skills in a risk-free environment with trained staff that understand bilingual techniques and second language acquisition. This year, nearly 100% of our English learners, students, made appropriate progress on WIDA tests and authentic language assessments." To conclude, a quote from human rights activist Malala: "There are many problems, but there is a solution, and it's education." The ASD student population is culturally and linguistically diverse, with nearly a quarter of our students as English learners. It's true, not all school districts have the same needs and challenges we do, but not all school districts have the same assets and talents that we do either. Please commit to fully continuing programming for English learners across ASD and at the Newcomer Academies. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next, I see Heather Harlan.
Hi, my name is Heather Harlan, and I live at 554 Seam Street in Emmaus, Pennsylvania. I am proud to be an employee of Allentown School District. I am a teacher at Building 21 and have been in the district since 2003. I've seen a lot of things come and go in my time in the district, and I feel very moved to speak up right now because the time is right, and I haven't spoken up on a larger context, partly because of my own privilege as a white woman, a white teacher. I've been doing some things in my classroom and at a school level, but now I have joined a coalition of teachers and community members and alumni from all around the Lehigh Valley, and we are interested in decolonizing curricula across the Lehigh Valley, and I am inviting ASD to join us in the work. So what does decolonizing the curriculum mean? So what that means, it's about creating a curriculum for and about and by Black, Indigenous, and people of color, by women, by LGBTQIA plus individuals, and other groups that have otherwise been marginalized or silenced, and centering those identities. And this helps shift the narrative about what is important in our educational system. When I look at the strategic framework, I see on page 4, we have 80% of the staff is white. We have a lot of work to do with anti-bias and anti-racism training. On page 5, culturally relevant pedagogy is highlighted as a very important aspect of the strategic framework, but that has to go way beyond a Martin Luther King essay and a Black History Month celebration. We need to embed these in our curriculum. In the curriculum audit, it said the most effective professional development is needs-based, differentiated in response to individual staff needs, and long-term change requires sustained, detailed staff development focused on implementation plans. And we need that in our school. We need to focus on anti-bias and anti-racism work in our school across the whole staff so we can serve our students better. We serve mostly students of, BIPOC students, and we need to do better. It also says in the curriculum, the strategic framework, on page 13, we need to develop rigorous and culturally responsive curriculum management and implement culturally responsive PD. So I'm here tonight to ask that the school district make an investment in decolonizing our curricula and lead the work in the Lehigh Valley. Thank you.
Thank you, Heather. I see Donna, you have your hand raised again. If you can let Donna in. Please state your name and address for the record, and then you may begin.
Hi, Donna Reitnauer, 1139 South 10th Street, Allentown, PA. As I mentioned once before, an Allentown teacher, Allentown resident, also a former Allentown parent. At the other board meeting, I spoke to you about the naming of the new school and the importance of naming the building Anna Mae Hayes Elementary. I understand there was some controversy or some discussion, I should say, back then about having a name that was more kind of evident of our population in Allentown, but we don't have any schools named for a woman. And as I said before, the last 2 names, or at least within the few names of in the Allentown School District, we had Ramos Elementary, and we also had Andre Reed Field. We don't have any school or anything in the Allentown School District named for a woman. And I went over the accolades of Anna Mae Hayes, and that she went through the Allentown School District at that time, and she was a nurse here in Allentown. So I just wanted to reiterate what I said before, that there's a lot of things being held up that need to be taken care of. So we're ready for the school year in September, whatever it looks like. We need a name for our school right away, and we cannot put it off any longer. So I'm not exactly sure, what that looks like, if it can be brought up, in old news. But I know there were a few of you that decided or voted not to table it. So I know it was Nick Miller, Sarah Jane Brace, a few others of you. So could you please untable this and vote tonight if it's possible? We went through a lot of time and hard work to come up with the nominations. The public also had a long span of time to make their nominations, and this was what was decided upon, so there should be no other questions. So I'm asking, if possible, tonight, if that can be made a motion and voted upon, so we have a name for our new school, so we could move forward. That would be wonderful. If not, at the earliest time that it can be, this needs to be motioned on, voted upon, and we need to have our new school name, which was already chosen, and it's Anna Mae Hayes Elementary. So I appreciate you listening to me, and action needs to be taken right away or as soon as possible to name our new school. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next on the list is Robert Smith. You can unmute yourself and state your name and address for the record.
Robert E. Smith Jr. I live at 1060 East Gordon Street on the east side of Allentown. Just some quick budget things I'd like to mention. $150,000 to the city for crossing guards. I hope that was withheld, and if not, it should have been prorated. We should not be paying the city $150,000 for crossing guards that were not even used. Transportation cost contracts, we should have savings on that for not using any buses in the last 3 or 4 months. Also, insurance costs, look at. Advertising and naming of the stadium. For 16 years, we've been waiting to put advertising at the stadium. I think it's time that we get some money for advertising at the stadium. Administrators should be frozen for 1 year due to the pandemic. This would save us a fortune. The IU contract should not be renewed. You'd save over $1 million there. Just some helpful hints. Thank you.
Thank you. Emily Carter, please state your name and address for the record.
Hi, Emily Carter, 1314 East Woodlawn Street, Allentown. So I just wanted to hop in and speak briefly in support of Heather, who addressed you a few speakers ago, and her colleagues' initiative to decolonize the curriculum in the ASD and beyond. I think some of the board members know me from some local electoral organizing work the past couple of years, but I'm currently starting my master's as well as my certification in secondary education for social studies at UPenn this year, with a focus on student teaching in an urban setting. So this is an issue that's near and dear to me as well. And I've also coached debate locally for 4 years. So I'm very much at the beginning of my journey as an educator, and I want other people to be able to speak on this more authoritatively than I. But what stood out to me very early in this process is how much kids deserve history and reading material that looks like them, that represents them, and that they can see themselves in order for kids to feel engaged and empowered in a school setting and as citizens of the world. Like, they need to be engaged with the material. Like, as a white woman growing up in school, you know, there are plenty of historical figures that look like me, but we can't expect like such a diverse district and our students to feel fully empowered to in school and beyond unless they have material and they have educators who are cognizant of their particular history, the struggles they face. And I think to meet this national moment, that's something that we absolutely have to consider in our school district and across Pennsylvania. So I also wanted to recommend in this vein that ASD staff undergo further anti-bias and anti-racism training, again, to meet the demands nationally of this moment and the demands of such a diverse district as we are privileged to have. So that's all. Just wanted to speak briefly, and definitely want to let other folks speak on this matter as well. But I did want to voice my support for Heather and strongly urge the district to examine this further. Thank you.
Thank you. Anne-Marie Stevens. Please state your name and address for the record.
1421 West Congress Street. And I have been a longtime resident of Allentown. I am a parent and also a teacher. I'm very happily working at Building 21. As Heather has spoken before, and also Emily, I just wanted to speak to the issue of decolonizing our curricula. I think Heather was very eloquent in explaining the importance of what it is that our coalition is trying to seek, and asking and inviting the Allentown School District to partake in and join in the work and the effort of making sure that our students are represented in not only our building, but also in what is being taught. I think oftentimes we are faced with challenges, and this is a moment, I believe, that we have the opportunity to stand up and make a difference. I think we see this happening around us, and I think this is one of the central issues when we talk about disparity in education that has been something that has been in our society and has been a part of education. And so I think with this effort, the idea is to allow our students to challenge the longstanding biases and omissions of people who represent themselves. And I think this is the time for us to make sure that our curriculum is reflective of that. I think oftentimes we don't stop to think how important the importance of making sure that who is being offered to our students as authors and representative, that it's reflective of not only who they are, but also of their culture and their history. And so I think it's very important for Allentown School District to, if you will, take the charge in this effort to try to make sure that our students recognize that they have the ability to have intellectual authority on who they're studying, who they're learning about, but also who we think have value. And I think the fact that we sometimes don't have that represented in our curriculum speaks to the importance we place on who we value and who we give attention to in our curriculums. So I would definitely, again, as I said, we are inviting the Allentown School District to just really take time. I know oftentimes, again, as I said, we always want to put things off, but I think this is a time for us to say, if not us, who? And if not now, when? So I just want to say thank you. And I hope you guys really take the time to recognize that this is something that is necessary and something that is important for our students to feel that their curriculum is representative and diverse. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. That's all that I see hands up. Is there any old business to come before the board?
Yes. I'd like to untable the naming of the new elementary school. I'd like to present a motion to untable it.
Okay, there's a motion to untable. Is there a second to untable?
Second.
Vega, seconded
Yes.
it. Okay, please call the roll for this is to untable the naming of the school.
Do we have a discussion to go along with it, or we just?
Not until after it's untabled. Once it's untabled, we can discuss.
Thank you.
Yep.
Miss Matheson,
Yes.
Miss Vega,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Theo,
Yes.
Mrs. Brace,
Yes.
Mrs. Conover,
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson Watts,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilt,
Yes.
Miss Harris.
Yes.
9-0 is untabled.
Okay. So the original motion on the floor was to name the new elementary school after Brigadier General Anna Mae Hayes. Ms. Vega, I see your hand is up. Was it up for discussion on this or for something?
Well, my hand was up right before it got to old business, but it's also up for old business. So can I just speak? Okay.
As long as it's about the naming of the school. If it's something else, then you have to just wait. So it's
Okay,
just
so
speak on the motion.
Yep.
Okay, go ahead.
So I wanted to put another motion on the table. Is the board willing to try to get the school renamed a different name? Like have another survey, whatever it was called.
All right, Mr. Freund, I need your help here. Can she put that as an amendment? I don't know how to do that. It's not a real amendment.
Hold on a second. Okay, I heard the motion is untabled. What is the main motion at this point?
The main motion is to name the new elementary school after Brigadier General Anna Mae Hayes.
Okay. So Linda, do you want to make an amendment to that? That would be the appropriate thing to do at this point. If you,
Yeah, and let me just say, I'm okay with the naming of the school being a woman. I just wanted to give everyone in the community a fair shot. So I guess I want to know, can I make an amendment to reopen the voting, I guess?
do you want to make an amendment? Let's see, well, we just untabled it.
Before we move forward and vote on the name that is chosen, because once that's voted in, that's it, it's done.
Okay. What is it that you want to do? I'll try to help you with it.
He wants to restart the process.
Well, the matter was tabled. It was untabled, so you can't table something that was untabled. I suppose that you can move to send this back to committee. That's about the best you could do at this point.
Yeah, no, and that's perfectly fine. And again, I just want to make it on the record. I don't have a problem with the naming of the school. I just wanted to give the other side of the community a fair shot so the school board can do a vote before we move forward.
Madam Chairman, my recommendation would be that you accept Ms. Vega's motion to return the issue to committee. I'll need a second and a vote.
Okay, so Ms. Vega made the motion to return this committee. Is there a second to her motion?
It sounds like it dies.
I don't see or hear any, so that motion dies. So we will be back to the original motion, which is to name the elementary school after Brigadier General Anna Mae Hayes. Is there discussion on that motion?
I want to start with Sarah and I were on the naming committee. We were on there with parents, students, teachers, and they came from the whole walk, completely diverse. Now, it was listed. It was on our website. It was out there. It is not our fault that people didn't see it because it was there. Now, there were names that were submitted that were Spanish names, that were Black people. Clyde Bosco was one of them. Both of my pastors were one of them. They all, they made the top 20. Dr. Melton made the top 10. So those names were there. I am offended that you are questioning my integrity, Sarah's integrity, and the people that were on that board, that were on that committee's integrity. It wasn't about Black, white, Hispanic, brown. No, it was about naming the school. It was done in a rubric that was fair. It was a fair process. And to say that it wasn't offends me and questions my integrity. And I got a problem with that. So, you had people in our community come and say what they had to say about the process. The same people are not coming about our students. But you're going to say this about, naming of a school, but what about our students, the real stakeholders? Why aren't you complaining for them? Why aren't you coming up here and marching for them and saying what you got to say and sending emails about our students? But you want to do this? No, this was done completely correct. And you're not going to question our integrity. So I say Miss Brigadier General Hayes, that's a name that was chosen. It was done fairly. That's a name that it should be.
Thank you, Ms. Harris. Is there any other discussion on the motion? Mr. Miller?
Yeah, I just would like to second what Phoebe said. There was a lot of time and effort spent on this search for this name, and following our processes. It's, this name represents half of our school district, and we need to represent our females in this district. So I'm definitely in favor of this.
And I'm gonna reiterate, she's from Allentown. Allentown born and bred. She was a nurse. How do you not commend that? In the Army, she served. I have nothing more to say.
Thank you, Ms. Harris and Mr. Miller. Ms. Wilt, your hand is up.
I just wanted to say we do have a unique opportunity with this school in that it's a community school as well. So we could, I don't know if this would need to be a motion, Mr. Freund, but if we're naming the school now, we have a community wing, we have a library that will be in the building. We have other opportunities to grow the names of the various parts of this building. So I don't know. I just wanted to throw that out there as an opportunity and as a comment. I'm not necessarily making a motion. I'm just maybe needing clarification. We're naming the school, but we could potentially name the community portion of the building something else.
Ms. Wilt, I think I can help you with that because I've been through this in other places. What's required by the department that we file a reconfiguration report by the end of July, which includes giving a name to the school. If the board wishes to name various portions of the school or programs in the school, to my knowledge, that does not require any registration or filing with PDE. So it really wouldn't be necessary to take that into consideration at this point. That could be reserved for any time in the future.
But I could put an amendment to it to say that certain wings and certain rooms can be named after community leaders.
It could be.
Yes, so I believe that's the building and education committees would work. This was just to name the school, and then it would go back to the committees because there is a policy on the process for naming portions of a building. So this is for naming just naming the actual physical school building.
And if I could just for a second, Phoebe and everybody who was on that committee, I know that you guys worked hard. We heard from the community, and so I said what I said on behalf of the community, but I never once downgraded your work or the name of the school. Okay, I was just speaking on behalf of the community.
Thank you, Linda.
And if I may, Mr. Conover?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, so, and I want to actually echo what Linda pretty much said about downplaying what you've done. We appreciate everything that the committee was done. I think I was instrumental in tabling it because the community did come forth and they said that they didn't feel as though they were given a fair shot in terms of communicating to them that the process was actually taking place. Now I heard it was on the website. I heard that it was, I'm not sure I was ever clear as to what paper it was placed in, but that didn't concern me as much as the fact that the community came out and spoke out. So I definitely acknowledge that. Since I have not received anything from any of the community that actually said that this is what we want. And I didn't hear anything from the district that said that there's another process. What I did hear tonight was folks, they stood up and said, well, hey, listen, we don't want to stop this ball from rolling because we need certain things that need to be put in place in order for us to move forward. Now, if I had it my way, it would be named Allentown Elementary School, because I always said from the beginning, I could care less what the name of the school was. My concern is to ensure that there's a whole lot of learning going on in that building. While with me saying that, I do have a lot of respect for the woman the general that we're actually, looks like we're gonna wind up naming. I also said to to echo what Nancy said, that's a big building, and we have other buildings, we have other walls. We can definitely create some kind of process or come up with a plan that's inclusive of everybody in the community to make sure that those important people that they want their names to be attached to the buildings, they can be included. So I just wanted to say that for all committee leaders, no pun intended, no, I didn't want you to feel that way, that we were coming against your decision, or we were making you feel that your work was just was done in vain. We do recognize your work, but the community spoke. And for that reason, myself, Lisa Conover, I think I was one of the ones that said, well, let's table it and let's move forward. But nothing else happened after that. So I just recommend that we move forward.
Thank you, Lisa.
Hi, this is Cheryl. I just want to add that there were some people who reached out when the building was being built and when the process began with community meetings about how the building would be done before ground was even broken, who recommended some people, and their names were included in that process. So I want to thank everyone that took the time out well in advance of the actual process to submit their suggestions as well. And although their names were not chosen, I thank them for their involvement. As I said, the night that the name was first proposed, I'm happy to hear that it is a woman, and she was one of the highest ranking females first at her time in her time. So I'm ready for the vote.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Johnson-Watts. Is there any other discussion? Seeing and hearing none, please call the roll.
Ms. Vega,
Yes.
Ms. Matheson,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Theo,
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson Watts,
Yes.
Ms. Harris,
Absolutely, yes.
Mrs. Brace,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilt,
Yes.
Mrs. Conover.
Yes.
9-0 passes.
Thank you. We now have Brigadier General Anna Mae Hayes Elementary School. Is there any other old business to come before the board?
Yes.
All right, go ahead, Ms. Harris.
Okay. I wanted to move to take off the table the appointment of our legal services to Kingsbury. Or take it off the table. I'm sorry, just take it off the table.
Okay. Is there a second to that motion?
Linda.
Ms. Vega, please call the roll.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Theo,
Yes.
Mrs. Conover,
Yes.
Ms. Harris,
Yes.
Mrs. Brace,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilt,
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson Watts,
Yes.
Ms. Matheson,
Yes.
Ms. Vega.
Yes.
The motion has been untabled.
Now, I'd like to make a motion to approve the proposal of Kingsbury and Herman and Fowl for our legal services for 2020 to 2023 with no amendments.
Second.
Can I clarify that, Madam President?
Yes, I was just about to ask.
So does that include the cutouts that we had for the second law firm, or does it all legal services fall under Kingsbury in Phoebe's motion?
Yes.
Because what I tabled had those couple cutouts.
Well, I'm putting forth a motion for no amendments.
Madam President, a point of order. This was tabled in committee, not at the board meeting.
It was tabled, but now Ms. Harris just put forth a new motion. Our original motion was I don't know about the tabled part, but now she just put forth a new motion there were 3 options given in front of us, and she put forth a motion for the first option, I believe.
Correct.
So Mr. Freund, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think you, voted up or voted down.
Point of order, it needs a second to her new motion. Is that correct,
Yeah,
Madam President?
Yes, I believe. Ms. Vega, did you second it?
I did.
Yes. So there is a first and a second. So the motion is for the legal contract to go fully to King Spry, correct, Ms. Harris? Yes. Okay. So is there any discussion on that motion? Mr. Theo?
Yes. We had conversations, and now this is brought up during this this method. The finance co-chairs met in co-chairs meeting and had discussions about this to bring a recommendation back to the board, which was my understanding was going to happen through the committee and not under new business. But since this motion is sitting on the floor right now, I will address the conversation that happened between me and my colleagues, Ms. Johnson-Watson and Nick Miller and Audrey Matheson yesterday. And we, to give a recommendation to the board, discussed at length what our recommendation would be, and it's something that we would agree upon. So, not everybody in that process got what they thought it should be. And we settled upon, and I'll let them speak for themselves, obviously. We settled upon that King Spry would be the solicitor of record, and that there would be the special education and student discipline would go to Sweet Stevens.
So I could make
So
I lost the word. You could
I will make a motion to amend the motion on the floor.
I'll second it.
That reflects that, and I'll repeat it again, that the solicitor of record would be King Spry, and the special education and student discipline would be contracted with Sweet Stevens.
Mr. Miller, are you seconding that motion?
Yes, I'll second that.
Okay, so right now we're discussing the amendment. So the amendment on the floor is to carve out special ed and student services to Sweet Stevens. Is there any discussion on the amendment to the motion?
Yeah. Go ahead, Linda.
So my question is what is King Spry's record with the special education that we want to give it to another firm?
They have an excellent record.
I don't think that's appropriate to have that conversation in public. And that's why we had the conversation in co-chairs to bring that forth to the board. And again, we as co-chairs were not, aware that this was going to be brought up during new business today. So it kind of took us by surprise, but nevertheless, this is where we are.
Okay.
Well, there's a lot of things that happen to board members, and it all of a sudden gets sprung on us. So we're going to go along with this. Linda, I have a question about, student hearings and things of that nature. Why do you want to give the discipline to Sweet Stevens? We don't know who they are. They didn't present themselves. They didn't come and present themselves. They just gave us their packet, but why didn't they come and present themselves? I don't know what they do.
They did. They all the law firms went through a process with the finance committee. And that's the point of having each individual committee, is that the board members on those committees vet the information and then bring a recommendation to the board.
Okay.
Well, I'd like to add something about recommendations from the co-chairs. I think it's great when we do the RFP process and we have recommendations from co-chairs, but I also think it's great when people are vying to do work with the district, that they attend our school board meetings, and we have records of attendance through our video programming. So I'm sure that that did not go unnoticed, to not see those individuals attending just to learn more about our district.
But I still have a question. So are we just voting to bring in a new firm because we want to wear a new pair of sneakers, or because there's a need? That's where I'm confused.
I will say that the co-chairs, the four co-chairs, felt there was a need.
No,
Absolutely.
if I may, my hand's up.
Yes, Ms. Conover.
Okay, Linda, before you came on the board, okay, there was a board meeting. And in that board meeting, again, Lisa Conover questioned, it was around this time of year when it was time for Freund to get the contract renewed. And there was a question as to why there weren't any RFPs presented. And the answer we got was pretty much he was the only one that responded. And then he also said, at that time, he did a commercial for himself. He said, listen, I'm the best. I've been with you guys for over 20 years and I've been doing this. And I made the comment, which was a real question. How do we know that if we don't have anything to compare you to? So what happened is there was an election and you were elected. So you, of course, you weren't privy to that. So I'm glad you asked that question. I understand why you're asking. So what happened was this year, they presented RFPs. And then these other firms were actually not formally, well, they were presented. They said, okay, these people came and this is what they want to do. So that's the reason why we're trying to decide now if it's Freund or if it's somebody else. Does that help at all?
Thank you, Lisa. That brings me to another question then. But
before you ask that question, if I may say this, just hold that question. Hold it right there, if I may. My question also was before that, because I had my hand raised. I heard, I think Charlie said that we can't have this discussion publicly, but tell me, is it true or is it not true that legal services are considered vendors?
There's a specific provision in the school code that will appoint legal counsel. I don't know if you call them vendors.
Well, in other words, and my reason for asking that is because if we're going to make a decision, what determines the fact that us deciding has to be made in private? So we don't know the answer to that question, and that's okay if we don't know. But that's the question that was in my head.
I will respond for myself and my understanding of governance and the law, that having this conversation in detail in terms of people's services, legal services, in terms of where they have succeeded or where they have failed, is something that would expose the district to potential legal action. And I don't want to go there.
Okay, Linda,
okay.
You can go with your question. Thank you.
Okay, so since we can't answer that question, then what about the financial part? Can we talk about what one cost would be versus the other? Is that something that we can talk about to help us make a decision? Anybody?
far as I know, you can talk about costs, yes.
Okay, so I was able to read the cost on Kingspry. What would the cost for, what are they called? Sweet, what are they called?
Sweet Stevens?
Yes. What is that cost look like one compared to the other?
So in terms of having a cost comparison, we're not prepared to kind of have that conversation. Again, not knowing that that was coming this evening, we didn't bring any of that information to have an informed conversation.
So being that the finance committee, my colleagues, Cheryl Johnson Watts, Mr. Thiel, and Ms. Matheson are making a strong recommendation for the amendment. I'm going to call the vote on what's Charlie made the motion for that amendment.
Hold on, because didn't I say no amendment?
You're still allowed to make an amendment. Just so Charlie made a motion to amend your motion, Phoebe.
Okay.
So Madam President, I'm calling the vote.
Okay, is there a second to call the vote?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Thiel. Please call the roll.
And there's discussion at this time, correct? On that amendment? That was just seconded?
This is not on the amendment. This is to call the roll. To call the roll to say that we're going to take a vote on the amendment. Meaning that when we're done saying we want to vote on it, we would vote on it. Am I correct, Mr. Freund, if we're calling the roll?
I'm not sure that, I think this is a vote on the amendment itself. That's what I understood.
I called the vote. It was seconded by somebody, and I don't believe that's a discussion. I believe it's a voice vote at that point.
We vote yes or no now, whether or not we're then going to vote.
Yes, well, if that's what Mr. Steele did, if he's calling for the vote, then you need to vote on that first before you vote on the amendment.
Yes, so we're voting to call the vote.
Right.
Wait a second, we're voting to call a vote? Okay, you got me confused.
You voted to close
You're
debate.
voting to close debate is what you're doing. So Ms. Murillo, if you can call the roll to close debate.
Ms. Harris,
I'm not sure what I'm voting on. We're just doing it to call. Are we?
You're voting to vote on the amendment, not on the amendment itself, but whether to stop the debate.
We're voting to stop the debate. We're not voting on the amendment yet. We're voting to stop the debate on the amendment.
Yes.
Mrs. Conover,
Yes.
Mrs. Brace,
Yes.
Ms. Vega,
No.
Mrs. Johnson Watts,
Yes.
Ms. Matheson,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilt,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Thiel.
Yes.
8-1 passes.
Okay, so debate is closed. So now we will call the roll to vote on the amendment, which is to carve out special ed and student services to Sweet Stevens. So if you can call the roll on that, Ms. Murillo.
Mrs. Conover,
No.
Mrs. Johnson Watts,
No.
Mrs. Brace,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilt,
Yes.
Ms. Harris,
No.
Ms. Matheson,
No.
Ms. Vega,
Wait, am I voting to take out the other agency, or am I voting to keep it in?
You're voting right now to amend the original motion, which was to, this amendment would add in the carve out of Sweet Stevens.
Carve out mean take out, right?
No, they would be put in. They would be able to.
Those services would be removed. Those services would go to Sweet Stevens.
No.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Theo,
Yes.
5-4, amendment fails.
Okay, so the original motion is on the floor, which is to give the full contract to Mr. Freund, or to King's Fry. Sorry. Is there any discussion on that motion?
I'd like to make a motion to table the motion out on the floor right now.
Okay, there's a motion to table. Is there a second?
Just a point of order, that since it's been untabled, it's not really appropriate to
Point of order, Mr. Freund, it was actually a new motion.
Yeah, the original motion was not what was brought forward tonight.
I'll second the.
I'm just pointing out that you can't untable it again, but whatever you want to do is fine. Go ahead.
Mr. Miller, are you seconding?
I'll second it. Yes.
Okay. Please call the roll to table the original motion.
Mrs. Johnson Watts,
No.
Mrs. Wilt,
Yes.
Ms. Matheson,
No.
Ms. Vega,
No.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Theo,
Yes.
Ms. Harris,
No.
Mrs. Conover,
No.
Mrs. Brace,
Yes.
5-4. You can't table it. I'm sorry, motion to table has failed.
I'd like the motion to amend to include the special ed only. Like carve out special ed.
Okay, there's a motion to amend to carve out the special ed. Is there a second to that motion?
I will second that.
Mr. Theo? Ms. Conover, do you have discussion on the motion? I see your hand up. Or discussion on the motion to amend the amendment?
No discussion. That's an old hand.
Okay.
Okay, wait, I have a question. So what we're voting on now is to put the special ed back in with the other attorney, or to take it out?
Take it out.
We are voting to put special ed to Sweet Stevens.
Okay, gotcha.
So just for sake of discussion, since we're still in the discussion on the motion to amend, this is basically the same amendment being voted with just a lesser involvement by the other firm.
Correct. Instead of special ed and student services, it's just special ed now being carved out to go to Sweet Stevens.
Mrs.
Seeing and hearing no other discussion, please call the roll on the amendment.
Mrs. Conover,
Absolutely not.
Ms. Matheson,
Tell me again. I have to say I've gotten lost.
You're voting on an amendment to the motion, and the amendment is to give special ed services to Sweet Stevens.
I just wanted to make sure we were on the amendment. Yes.
Ms. Vega,
No.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Theo,
Yes.
Ms. Harris,
No.
Mrs. Johnson Watts,
No.
Mrs. Brace,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilt,
Yes.
5-4 amendment passes.
Okay, so now the motion on the floor is to give legal services to King Spry with special ed services carved out to Sweet Stevens. Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing and hearing none, please call the vote.
Ms. Matheson,
Yes.
Ms. Vega,
No.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Theo,
Yes.
Mrs. Brace,
Yes.
Mrs. Conover,
No.
Mrs. Johnson Watts, Mrs. Johnson Watts,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilt,
Yes.
Ms. Harris.
Yes.
7-2 passes.
Is there any other old business to come before the board? Seeing and hearing none. I have one item that I have for new business, and that is to pass a resolution supporting the development of an anti-racist school climate by the Board of Directors of the Allentown School District. And I will read it since this was not placed on board docs ahead of time. Whereas we are deeply saddened and outraged by the recent killing of George Floyd and violence against Black men and women, the subsequent protests have shined a spotlight on the harmful effects of racism and inequality. Furthermore, the public response has highlighted the racial trauma that our Black students, families, staff, and communities have not only endured for centuries, but continue to face today. Whereas we must recognize that racism and hate have no place in our schools and society. However, we must understand that racism is systemic and it is unconsciously and consciously rooted into our institutions, policies, and practices. Consequently, we acknowledge that we must look at our own school policies and practices through an anti-racist and equity lens to address traces of racism and inequity that still exist within our own school community. Whereas we must center the voices of staff, students, families, and communities who have historically endured discrimination and marginalization. Their lived experiences and stories require attention, require respect, require empathy, and most importantly, require action. Therefore, it is essential that we establish an expectation that a diversity of students, families, and community members, specifically those that have been ignored, discriminated against, and marginalized, are heard and included on substantive school and district issues. Whereas we must better educate ourselves and seek to educate the community on the historical and current impact of racism and discrimination on our students, families, and communities, as well as understand our role in perpetuating such inequity. Through continuous professional development and opportunities for honest dialogue and listening sessions, we hope to build partnerships in the community focused on overcoming racism and other barriers. By doing so, we can create opportunities to ensure that each child has the tools and supports needed to thrive. Whereas we must advocate to advance civil rights and cultivate an anti-racist school climate necessary to meet the needs of all students in our care. Our students, no matter their race, ethnicity, religion, gender, sexual orientation, socioeconomic status, language ability, disability, and other identities, deserve to feel safe, to feel seen, and to feel affirmed. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Allentown School District Board unequivocally stand firm in our collective responsibility to foster an equitable and inclusive environment for every student, staff member, parent, and community member. We commit to use our role as school board directors to recognize, respond, and speak out against injustice and racial inequity in our school community. In support of this goal, the Allentown School Board commits to the following action steps. Conduct cultural competency professional development for all school board of directors, teachers, administrators, clerical, custodians, security, paraprofessionals, food service staff, conduct annual district climate surveys to inform resource allocation, advocacy, and policy development, commit to recruitment and retention strategies aimed at the diversification of the district's workforce, continue district-wide implementation of restorative practice training for all school board of directors, teachers, administrators, clerical, custodian, security, paraprofessional, and food services staff, employ strategies and resources aimed at reducing the racial achievement gap as indicated in the district curriculum audit findings, and commit to the continued review of the role of police officers in ASD public schools. So I am making the motion to adopt this resolution. Is there a second to that motion?
A second.
Ms. Harris, is there any discussion on the motion?
Yes, this is Cheryl Johnson Watts. 2 years ago, we talked about having an ad hoc committee on equity. There has not been one meeting. I think it is wonderful that we are being responsive. I think it's wonderful that PSBA sent this out as a recommendation and it was updated to reflect our district. And now what we need to do is what I'm making a motion for is an amendment to have a formal committee that will report out to the district at our regular monthly board meetings, as we have done with so many other committees such as Safety Task Force, on equity. That's my motion.
I second it.
Okay, so you want to add that
Yep.
into the therefore be it resolved section of the document?
Yep.
Can you tell me exactly what you wanted to say?
So evidenced by the monthly reporting of a committee on equity that will report out at our regular monthly board meeting.
Okay, is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing and hearing none, please call the roll.
Ms. Vega,
Yes.
Ms. Matheson,
Yes.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Thiel,
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson Watts,
Yes.
Ms. Harris,
Yes.
Mrs. Brace,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilt,
Yes.
Mrs. Conover.
Yes.
Motion passes 9-0 passes.
So the motion now is the resolution with that information added to the bottom. Mr. Parker or Dr. Brown, do you have any discussion or comments to make on this resolution?
Yes, I'll take just a moment and I will absolutely pass the ball here to Dr. Brown and her leadership with equity and accountability as a part of the PSBA Equity Task Force, really driving, becoming the driving force behind taking the principles that we've developed as part of our strategic framework, our curriculum audit, and our fiscal audit, and really driving those into the PSBA resolution. So I want to absolutely give kudos to her for her leadership in that regard and open the floor to her to speak to how this all came about.
Sure. And as I begin, I'll say to our community, first to our school board of directors, thank you for the opportunity and platform. If you know anything about true activism work and equity work, you know that it is not for the faint-hearted. You know that you always stand in hyper criticized positions when folks think you're not doing enough or you're not doing it the right way. And what I would offer is this resolution adopted here today by the school board is an example of the right work being done at the right time. So we're all very conscious of the efforts and the remarkable strides that our current board, our past board leadership started 2 years ago with being very vocal, very visible about the commitment to equity in all dimensions of equity, but understanding that this was a marathon and not a sprint, understanding that there were so many challenges and barriers within this district that absolutely had to be addressed. And if you know anything about equity work, the most difficult thing to do is to continue to prioritize equity in a deficit environment where morale could be low and where there is rampant low performance. And while those things may be hard for us to hear, there are truths, and there would give more credence, if you will, and more meat, if you will, to this stance that our board has taken today by passing the resolution. So it is not a new a superficial gimmick that was jumped on. What we did is we locked arms with PSBA now that they are coming along at the governance level and are basically saying we stand in alignment with them as the Commonwealth governing body for school board of directors. And we're attaching our work and continuing our work in that same vein. So I appreciate the opportunity to bring this through our school board of directors under the leadership of Superintendent Parker, but also to say that this work is a culmination of many, many moving parts. Our administrators that sit in our central office, our teachers in our buildings, and our families, which we are working to give even more voice and more space to be a part of this public educational system that is built for the students. And so I'll stop there because I could go on all night about the profoundness of this moment. But again, I'll stop there and say again, thank you. And it was definitely a pleasure to be a part of bringing this forward at this moment, at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Brown.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Dr. Brown. Is there any other discussion on the motion? Seeing and hearing none, call the roll.
Mr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Theo,
Yes.
Ms. Conover,
Yes.
Ms. Harris,
Yes.
Mrs. Brace,
Yes.
Mrs. Wilt,
Yes.
Mrs. Johnson Watts,
Yes.
Ms. Matheson,
Yes.
Ms. Vega,
Yes.
9-0 passes.
Is there any other new business to come before the board?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay, I have one thing. The West End Youth Center has been using our Trexler baseball field for quite some time. In 2016, they gave $6,550 to fix the field at Trexler. 2017, they gave $32,000 and paid Jones Turf to redo the field. Now, they also gave next year $1,930. The following year, $4,500. The following year after that, $1,800. And they also gave $8,500 for a laser machine, to help the laser part to help with the field. Now they're being told, so total, this is what they've given since 2016, $55,480. They have been told that they cannot use the fields this year. How can we, and I just went past Trexler Middle School. On my way here, there is a flag football team using our field right now. But West End Youth Center, who takes our inner city kids, yes, our inner city kids, and plays baseball with them and helps them, and they can't use it when they paid $55,000 to fix it. They maintain that field, they cut the field's grass, but they can't. I don't understand that. Why is that happening? This was told to them, and they also do with the Allen RPI program. Our kids are not being able to play on the field There's other schools that are already playing. The governor said that we can go as of yellow to, and other schools are already doing that, but our school is not. So we're putting our kids behind the 8 ball again. They're already disadvantaged at one point. So we're giving them less and then expecting them to perform. That's not fair to our kids. You know, we all know that when you play a sport, it changes the mindset. Perfect example, my family of 13. Each of us who went to college, went to school on a baseball, softball, volleyball, football scholarship. One field hockey. And then 2 of my brothers went on total full baseball scholarships. And then as well as all of us got academic scholarships. So you mean to tell me I can't give these kids something that they deserve, and especially our seniors? Give our seniors some time to even play on the field, because of the pandemic, they weren't able to do that. But you're telling them no. Our school district is telling them no, they can't use it, but we're letting somebody else play flag football on it. I think we as a school board need to vote on something so that they can use our field. I have pictures right now in my phone of someone else using their field. And I don't know who gave them permission to use it, but we can't give who gave them permission to use for flag football? Huh? But our kids can't play baseball. What do we do about that?
If you would like to send that information to Mr. Parker, I'm sure he can look into it to see what's going on.
Okay. But this West End Youth Center paid for that field, and we can't use it. They can't use it. That's wrong. It's a donation to the school. Keep it up. Thank you, Chair.
Ms. Vega, did you have new business?
No, I didn't have new business, but I never got to make my comment from earlier, so I wanted to make sure I got to make it before you put a motion to adjourn.
Okay. Well, this is it. We're adjourning after this.
Okay, cool. So first off, I wanted to thank everybody from the public that came out and spoke today. Ashley, Donna, Bob, Susie, Lori, Lisa, Heather, Emily, and Anne Marie. You were heard. So I just wanted to say thank you to them for speaking up. But there's a question that I keep getting and I don't know the answer to when it comes to public comment. If they send an email, is that email taken sort of like if they put it in Let's Talk, or because like the emails weren't read out, so, or are the emails equivalent to them just speaking up today, but just not read publicly?
Right, so anything that comes via email gets forwarded. If it's addressed to the entire board, Ms. Murillo forwards it to the entire board. If a community member wants to public comment, they would need to come and listen in on the meeting. And during the 2 points in the meeting when we allow public comment, those are the points in time when they can say whatever they need to say.
Okay, thank you for answering that.
You're welcome. But if they do have questions that they need answered, then the best thing for them to do is to use the Let's Talk app, because that, or the Let's Talk platform, because that will direct the question directly to who it needs to go to. So if they send the board a list of questions, that doesn't mean it's going to be answered, because we're not in charge of answering all those the exact questions. So it's better for them to use the Let's Talk platform so it goes directly to who it needs to go to. Does that make sense?
Awesome. Thank you so much for answering that.
You're welcome. All right, seeing and hearing no other new business, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Ms. Johnson-Watts, is there a second?
Linda.
Ms. Vega, all those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everybody.